Something strange happened in the automotive world recently, and if you weren't paying close attention, you might have missed exactly what was going on beneath the surface. Mat Armstrong, the CEO of Bugatti Rimac, posted a video. On the surface, it looked completely normal. He was standing inside the company's impressive IMAT campus, walking viewers through facility, talking about factory tours, inviting the public to come and see how the Nevra RS and the Bugatti Tourbillon are being built side by side on the same production line. He was enthusiastic, welcoming, and warm. He encouraged people to apply through the website, come in, look around, enjoy the experience. Standard corporate content, polished promotional material, nothing to see here, except the timing. The timing changed everything, because this video didn't appear during a scheduled marketing campaign. It didn't drop during an auto show week or align with a product launch. It appeared almost immediately after Mat Armstrong, a YouTuber working out of his regular garage with standard tools available to any serious independent mechanic, successfully completed the monocoque split on his Bugatti Chiron. The exact procedure that Bugatti's own CEO had previously stated on the record and with confidence was impossible to perform outside of Bugatti's specialized factory environment. Within days of being proven publicly and definitively wrong, Rimac posted an open invitation for the world to come tour his factory. The automotive community noticed immediately. The comment sections erupted, and what followed became one of the most fascinating pieces of corporate behavior the enthusiast world has witnessed in years. To fully understand why this moment carries so much weight, you need to appreciate what Mat Armstrong actually accomplished and why it mattered far beyond the technical details. Armstrong has been rebuilding a salvage-titled Bugatti Chiron on his YouTube channel, and the project has grown into something genuinely extraordinary. Millions of people tune in to follow every update, not just car enthusiasts, but people from completely different backgrounds who have become emotionally invested in what this rebuild represents. The project became a phenomenon, but it was a monocoque split that transformed it from a remarkable build into something culturally significant. The carbon fiber monocoque is the central structural element of the Chiron. It's the core of the entire car, the tub that everything else mounts to and around. Splitting it, accessing the internal components, and working with that structure is an incredibly delicate and technically demanding process. When Rimac had previously addressed the idea of independent mechanics attempting such work, the message was clear and firm. It couldn't be done safely outside the factory. It required specialized equipment, proprietary knowledge, and a controlled environment that only Bugatti's facilities could provide. These weren't casual offhand remarks. They were definitive statements from the person at the top of the company, designed to establish clear boundaries around what independent repair could realistically achieve with one of the world's most complex road cars. And then Armstrong did it, working methodically, documenting every single step for his audience, researching carefully, and executing with the kind of patience and precision that the project demanded. He split the monocoque in his garage, not in a factory, not with proprietary tooling that only Bugatti possesses, in a garage, with the determination of someone who refused to accept that the word impossible applied to him. When the videos went out showing the completed procedure, the reaction was enormous, not just because of the technical achievement itself, but because of what it directly contradicted. The CEO of the company had said it couldn't be done. The CEO was wrong. And millions of people watched proof of that in real time. This is a context that makes Rimac's factory tour video so loaded with meaning. Strip away everything and focus purely on the sequence of events. CEO makes definitive claim about impossibility. Independent builder proves the claim false. CEO posts welcoming video about factory access days later. Every person who followed this story understood exactly what they were looking at. The automotive community didn't need anyone to explain the subtext. They saw it clearly and said so loudly in the comment sections, which became extraordinary documents of collective media literacy and corporate skepticism. What makes the situation genuinely complex is that Rimac's video is constructed to be completely deniable. There is no explicit reference to Armstrong. There is no direct invitation addressed to him. There is no acknowledgement of the monocoque split or any concession that previous statements were inaccurate. If Rimac were ever directly challenged about the video's timing, he could reasonably point to it as standard promotional content that had been in development before any of the Armstrong controversy escalated. The plausible deniability is built in, and that's precisely what makes it such a sophisticated piece of corporate communication. It's designed to send a message while providing full cover for the sender. The message being sent, as the community interpreted it, is roughly this: the doors are open. Passionate people who love these cars are welcome here. We are a company that embraces automotive enthusiasm rather than suppressing it. If you happen to be someone with a deep interest in how a Chiron or a tourbillon is constructed, we would love to show you around. The invitation is real, and the offer is genuine, and none of this has anything to do with the fact that we were recently and very publicly proven wrong about something we stated with complete confidence. Whether that reading is entirely fair or not almost doesn't matter. What matters is that virtually everyone watching believed it, and the comment sections across platforms became a referendum on corporate honesty, right to repair, and the specific relationship between Bugatti and the independent builder who had just dismantled their narrative along with his Chiron structure. Comments dissecting the timing, the motivation, and the strategic positioning flooded in from viewers who clearly have been following every chapter of the story with close attention. The broader context here involves something that extends well beyond Bugatti and one YouTube channel. The right to repair movement has been building momentum across multiple industries for years, and the automotive sector sits at one of its most contested front lines. Manufacturers have consistently argued that modern vehicles are too complex, too software-dependent, and too safety-critical to allow independent repair at the level that previous generations of car owners took entirely for granted. These arguments have real components to them. Modern vehicles, especially at the hypercar level, involve systems of staggering sophistication. But critics argue, with significant evidence, that these safety and complexity justifications are regularly deployed in service of something else entirely, which is a protection of lucrative service monopolies and control of part supply chains that generate enormous profits. When Bugatti CEO stated that the Chiron monocoque split was impossible outside factory conditions, he was essentially making a complexity and safety argument in concentrated form. This car is too specialized, too technically demanding, too dangerous to be approached by anyone outside our controlled environment. It's a statement that simultaneously positions Bugatti as the responsible steward of their technology and as the essential gatekeeper, without whom independent work is not just difficult, but genuinely impossible. Armstrong's success didn't just prove the technical claim wrong. It challenged the entire framework of gatekeeping that the claim was designed to support. This is why the right to repair community rallied around Armstrong's project so enthusiastically, and why the Chiron rebuild became a reference point in conversations that had nothing to do with supercars. Consumer rights advocates, independent repair shops across many sectors, and people who simply bristle at being told by corporations what they can and cannot do with things they own all found something meaningful in what Armstrong was documenting. If the most extreme possible example, a one-of-a-kind carbon fiber hypercar built to the absolute limits of automotive engineering, can be worked on independently by a skilled and determined individual, then the arguments manufacturers use to justify restriction and gatekeeping everywhere else look considerably weaker. For Bugatti specifically, the brand damage from the sequence of events has been significant and ongoing. Bugatti occupies a very particular position in the automotive world. The brand represents the absolute pinnacle of automotive achievement in the eyes of its admirers, a company where engineering exists as a form of art, and where the price of entry reflects not just the cost of materials and labor, but the almost mythological status of what the badge represents. That image requires careful cultivation. It requires that Bugatti be seen as capable, authoritative, and honest. When the CEO makes a definitive technical claim and an independent YouTuber demonstrates that claim to be false in front of millions of viewers, the damage to that carefully maintained image is real and not easily repaired. Every piece of content Bugatti posts now exists in this shadow. The factory tour video, whatever its original intent, became immediately and overwhelmingly about Armstrong in the comment sections. A promotional video highlighting two of the most technically ambitious road cars currently in existence, the Nevra RS and the Tourbillon, vehicles that genuinely represent remarkable achievements in automotive engineering, couldn't hold the audience's attention on its own merits because the audience was too busy discussing what the video's timing meant in relation to the rebuild happening in a private garage somewhere. That is a profound communications crisis for a luxury brand whose entire identity depends on being taken seriously as the ultimate authority on its own products. The strategic corner that Bugatti finds itself in is genuinely uncomfortable, and the factory tour video looks like an attempt to find a way out of it without explicitly acknowledging being trapped. Continuing their previous posture, the one that emphasized impossibility, gatekeeping, and unique specialization of factory repair, is no longer tenable. The evidence against it is too visible and too widely shared. But openly reversing course creates its own serious problems. Corporate leadership, especially at the CEO level, rarely admits error directly and publicly, particularly when those errors were stated with the kind of confidence Rimac brought to his original claims. An explicit acknowledgement will require a degree of institutional humility that runs against every instinct in corporate communications. The indirect invitation is a middle path between those two unacceptable options. It doesn't require admission of fault. It doesn't require direct engagement with Armstrong or his project. It allows Bugatti to reposition gradually toward a more welcoming and collaborative posture, while maintaining that everything they've said previously was reasonable and that their openness now reflects generosity rather than correction. If Armstrong responds positively, Bugatti gains a narrative where they supported the passionate builder all along. If Armstrong ignores the overture entirely, Bugatti can position any continued criticism as unfair given their demonstrated openness. The video is designed to generate favorable outcomes regardless of how the immediate subject of its subtext chooses to respond. But Armstrong's position in this situation is extraordinarily strong, and the strategic logic for him to accept any kind of indirect invitation is very difficult to construct. His project has succeeded because of its independence from manufacturer support. The story works because it's one person against institutional resistance, using skill and determination to accomplish something the institution claimed was beyond reach. That narrative has generated millions of engaged followers, sparked meaningful conversations about right to repair, and produced content that continues to resonate. Introducing a cooperative relationship with Bugatti, even one framed as a simple factory tour, muddies every clean line of that story. There's also the question of what acceptance would look like to the audience that is invested in this project. Armstrong has built tremendous credibility through a straightforward approach. He doesn't attack Bugatti. He doesn't perform outrage or manufacture drama. He simply documents his work honestly and lets the results carry the message. That restraint and professionalism is a significant part of why people trust him and root for him. But accepting a factory tour invitation after all of this would read, to at least some portion of that audience, as a shift in posture. It might look like seeking approval from the very institution whose gatekeeping he's been quietly dismantling. It might provide Bugatti with public relations material that misrepresents the actual history of their relationship with this project. Armstrong has every reason to continue exactly as he has been. The rebuild progresses. Parts are being sourced through independent channels, which itself continues to prove that the supply chain monopoly Bugatti depends on is not as airtight as manufacturers prefer their customers to believe. The documentation continues. The community remains engaged. Each milestone reached is another piece of evidence that the original claims about impossibility were wrong, and the story gets stronger with every completed step rather than requiring any external validation or manufacturer blessing to move forward. If Bugatti and Rimac genuinely want to change the relationship between the company and the independent builder community, there are concrete steps available that would demonstrate that commitment far more credibly than an indirect video invitation. Making parts available for purchase by independent owners would immediately address one of the most significant practical obstacles that builders like Armstrong face. A clear public statement about their position on independent repair, one that acknowledges rather than obscures their actual stance, would do more for their credibility than any amount of carefully constructed promotional content. Direct and transparent communication, rather than the plausibly deniable kind, which signal that the shift in posture is real rather than strategic. Until those kinds of concrete actions appear, the factory tour video will continue to be read as what the community almost unanimously decided it was the moment it dropped. A corporation caught being wrong, attempting to manage the damage without admitting the error, using the tools of indirect communication to signal a shift it isn't prepared to announce openly. The automotive community watching this story is sophisticated enough to recognize the pattern. They've seen corporate communications long enough to understand that timing is often the most honest thing about a press release, and that what a company chooses not to say explicitly is frequently more revealing than what it does say. The extraordinary thing about where the situation stands right now is that Armstrong doesn't need to do anything differently. His approach throughout has been his greatest asset. He remains respectful, methodical, and focused entirely on the work itself. The story he's telling is one of competence and determination, and it continues to write itself with every video update. The Chiron rebuild will either succeed completely, which proves everything his supporters believe about independent repair and manufacturer gatekeeping, or will encounter genuine obstacles, which will themselves become meaningful data points about what independent builders actually face when manufacturers choose obstruction over support. Rimac's factory tour video, for all the strategic calculation likely behind it, may have revealed more than intended. The comment sections told a story the promotional content couldn't control. Every reply connecting the video's timing to Armstrong's success was a reminder that brand narratives exist at the mercy of the communities consuming them, and that those communities are paying far closer attention than corporate communications teams sometimes account for. The automotive enthusiast world has always had a keen nose for authenticity and equally keen sensitivity to its absence. What they detected in the timing of that invitation was the smell of damage control, and they said so clearly and at length. Mat Armstrong's garage contains a Bugatti Chiron that was supposed to be impossible to work on independently. It's being rebuilt anyway. The millions of people watching that process understand exactly what it means, and no factory tour invitation, however strategically timed, changes the fundamental story that's being told one documented step at a time.